This is a chance for us as therapists to really make our voice heard. We are going to be an important part of this process. And I think we're going to see telehealth from here on out really move forward. It's in our best interest to get very good with telehealth because this is forcing people to see doctors, therapists, lawyers like this, like we're doing. And people are going to get really cool with it really quick. And we need to keep up.
So we're actually on a telehealth session right now. You
Yes.
invited me to a telehealth session, and I'm recording it with a screen recording program, which we don't offer recording of telehealth sessions, obviously. But yeah, so can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Yes, I am Pamela Sirachi. My office in San Luis Obispo, California, but I see people from all over California thanks to telehealth. And naturally, right now, I'm seeing everybody on telehealth. I've been a therapist for a really long time. I've been in San Luis Obispo for 20 years. Prior to that, I had a practice in Santa Cruz, California. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Well, thank you for being here.
You bet.
You know, with everything happening today, thousands of people, thousands of practitioners are trying to make the switch to telehealth, and a lot of people don't think they're, techie enough to pull it off. Could you offer them some encouragement or support?
Yes, you are absolutely techie enough to pull it off. If I pulled it off, anybody can pull it off. I'm not patient with machines. I don't like them. They don't like me. They turn off for no reason, all of that stuff. And I can do it. So if I can do it, you can do it. And right now, people really, really need to talk to their therapists. And that means they're looking for somebody who can work online like this.
And what would be the best first step? Would you just try it out with a friend?
It's always a good idea to try it out with a friend. So you can just kind of create a dummy account in your practice management software, send it to a friend, and then have them sign in as a client, and then you can get their feedback. So a lot of times what's really helpful is, does this sound better? Does this sound better? Try it with headphones, without headphones. A lot of people aren't quite sure where to look. So you can talk to your friend online and say, okay, so does it look like I'm looking at you now? How about now? What I hear from a lot of people, because I do work with a lot of therapists as clients, is that they feel like they have to look into the camera. And that does make sense. But if you sit far enough back and the lens of your camera is about level, when you look at your client, as long as they're centered on their screen, you look like you're looking at your client to them. If you're up really close, first of all, nobody wants to see you that close. So don't get too close to your camera. And then you would have to look in the camera. And that's really exhausting because we're used to looking at human faces and interacting. And if you're looking at the camera, you can't see what your client is doing. And it also just wears you out really fast. So have your friend, just to reassure you, have your friend with your dummy account say, okay, what's it look like here? How about here? I always recommend that you have like a head and shoulders kind of view, because if it's just your head, it's a massive head on your client's screen. And if you're too far back, they don't need to see your whole body. So like this, and then I talk with my hands a lot, so you can see my hands. So that's helpful, especially for clients who know me. So there's that. And then just so you can see, how do I sign in? How do I sign out? And get that feedback. How do I sound? All of that is really important. You don't want to do it with somebody in your house. That's a really important thing about testing, because then you're dividing the internet in your house. You want to do it to somebody else on a different router. That is the extent of my knowledge about internet.
Yeah, so tell me about your tech setup here. Do you need the headphones, or that just kind of adds to the sound quality?
Well, I often don't use the headphones. When I started off, I always used them, and one of my younger clients went, "Oh, nice headphones." The '90s called; they want their headphones back. I was like, ugh. So I can do it with or without. It's sometimes if it's just going to be a short period of time, I just go ahead and do it just for sound quality. I also have an external camera. Depending on the kind of computer you have, an external camera can be really nice. And then I have a ring light, because the lighting is hard to adjust to. Like today, it's kind of foggy and rainy outside, and so it wouldn't give me enough light by my window. And you can, crank it up or down, and it can be different colors. It's really inexpensive. I think the headphones, the camera, and the ring light all together were less than $100. They're not expensive, and they do really add to the quality of what your clients see. So I think that's really important. If we're fuzzy and grainy, it's not going to feel that good for our clients.
Does it take a while to get used to? How was it for you as you started up?
Well, it takes a little bit to get used to. But whenever you start anything new, it's tiring because you're doing something new. And just like all therapists, when I started out and I didn't know anything about being a therapist, I came home exhausted. This is a much quicker learning curve. Part of it is, again, just kind of getting comfortable with it. But when you're online and you're looking at your client, it's not the same as being in the same room with them, but it's close enough. It's better than nothing. And if the things that you have to remember, that if you're working with telehealth, you tend to sit really, really still, where when we're with other people, we don't realize it, but we have lots of little micro movements. On telehealth, you're sitting really still. So you want to make sure that you give yourself at least 15 to 30 minutes in between sessions. So you can get up, move around, get a drink of water, stretch, do whatever you need to do to move yourself. And then I always encourage my clients to do that too, because they also, when they're in person with us, move around more. When they're on their phones or they're on their computers, they're being really still. So I always tell people at the very end, okay, before you go back to life, which is right outside your closet door or right outside your garage or whatever it is, go take a walk, get yourself some water, do something like that. When people come to my office, they have at least a few minutes drive between therapy and real life, so to speak. So we want to make sure that we pad that for them, but especially for the movement part. If you move in between sessions, if you set yourself up so you can see your client's face, and you make sure that you're taking good care of yourself, just like you have to do when you're at your office, you will not find it super exhausting. It's a new thing. Cut yourself some slack and recognize, if you're right-handed and you hurt your right hand, you have to use your left hand, you can still write. It's just going to take a little bit of time for that to feel fluid.
Do your clients usually tune in from just their laptop, and how does that work for them? Or do they use the iPhone app?
If you're a SimplePractice user, it couldn't be easier for you or for your client. So basically, you're just going to go into your calendar, click on it, say start the video session. It gives you a little preview, and then you're in. And that's the same on your client's end. People sign in on their computers, on their phones, from their car, from their office, from their bedroom. I talked to somebody today who was in their walk-in closet because everybody's home with them. So they were kind of hiding in the back of their closet. They had good reception, though. On their phone. So it's super easy and transportable. And, whenever we get onto a telehealth session, the first question is always, where are you? Because that's important. And do you have privacy? And that's the thing that I also want to emphasize, is that when clients come to my office, I am in charge of the privacy. But on telehealth, they are in charge of the privacy. And we have to let them know that you have to ensure your privacy. So if, for example, they say, I'm at home, you have to say, to remind them, are you home alone? Will you be interrupted? And sometimes like, oh, I should close the door. I'm in therapy. Yes, you should close the door. And that is just one of the things about telehealth. It's not a downfall. It's just a thing we need to remember. We need to find out where they are, because if they're in our office, we know where they are. Where are you? You're at home. Sometimes clients go out to their car to do it because that's sort of their mobile office. Well, where are you parked? I'm parked at, whatever French Park. Okay, I know where that is. Because we should know where they are. If, God
take a note of
forbid,
that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So that's always the first thing in my note is client privacy verified, client location, and then where they're going to go after. Like, okay, tell me, what are you going to do after our telehealth session? Just so I know that they're going to take care of themselves. And I note that too.
Mm-hmm. So there's two big things in there that I heard, is that just that self-care piece. And then the really important thing that I think you mentioned was for your clients to give them an activity to kind of ease them back into normal life. Because now when they turn off your session, they're kind of in a vacuum of just their alone space again. And it's much more dramatic. So could you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So with clients, generally speaking, I give clients homework. It might just be, here's something to think about, write down these 3 things, whatever it is. But it is really good. And that's a good word. It is a vacuum. So they go from pretty intense interaction to no interaction, or just kind of wildly chaotic feeling interaction. So the first person that I'm referring to would be somebody who's working at home who lives alone. And they're going from this very intense interaction, we're talking about hard stuff, to just that silence and maybe feeling really lonely. So we want to give them a heads up. Hey, there's going to be a little bit of a transition period here. So when we're done, I want you to write down 3 things that you're taking out of this session. And then tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to write down 3 things you did right. And in between now and when you go to bed, I want you to call your friend, your sister, your mom, your whatever, somebody we know is a good person for them to talk to. Call them, don't text them, call them, get another voice. I always encourage people to do some movement. I think after we've been sitting for an hour and talking about hard stuff, it's really important to get up and walk around. Everybody that I see, I encourage to meditate. I always encourage people to download like Insight Timer and Headspace are really good apps that have free versions. So I really encourage that, especially as people are leaving an intense interaction. If they feel kind of wound up, I want them to have sort of a tool to go to. So there's movement, there's meditation, and there's contact with other people, as well as kind of writing for themselves what they took out of the session. And I always want people to write that down, by the way. That's not just telehealth. I always have people, when you leave here, I want you to just jot note to self 3 things you got out of today's session. And it really helps solidify that. And that's true across the board.
So therapists that are trying telehealth for the first time, they're switching their practice to telehealth. They're changing a lot of in-person time with a lot of screen time. So do you have some tips for self-care?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's really important. We are used to having a lot of incoming personal contact. Right? That's the nature of our job. And that's why sometimes we go home and we might even go home to our loved ones and say, that's it. I am related out. Don't talk to me about anything serious. But it does feed us. Therapists tend to be people who really like that kind of interaction. So we're going to have to really calibrate for that change. One is, of course, it's new. So it's a little more tiring until you get used to it. It makes you sit still a lot, as we discussed. So you're going to have to move. And then you're going to want to make sure that you're doing your meditation, you're doing your self-care, you're making sure you're hydrating and fueling yourself and not eating a bunch of junk food. And you're also going to want to make sure that you check in with colleagues, friends, family members. Over the weekend, I probably talked to a half dozen of my therapist friends, just like, this is weird. And I do a lot of telehealth, so I'm kind of the person that people call for, how do you do informed consent for this? And where do you sit? And I love giving out that information. I'm happy to do it. But selfishly, it's really just good for another therapist to give me a call. I just really like being able to talk to my colleagues because we're all in this boat together. It's different than what our family members might be going through.
Absolutely. And on the client side as well, what are you seeing for your clients coming in? What are some of the things that they're dealing with, and how are you helping them in this very unique time?
Yeah, this is a really unique time, and we have never done this before. Like, I am old enough to remember way back, and I've never been in a shelter-in-place situation for this kind of extended period of time. And so our clients are coming in with whatever they were originally coming in with, for sure. But then layered into that is the anxiety of the unknown. What is this going to look like? We're in a really anxious environment. And there's an expression in therapy, any trauma is all trauma. So when people start to have that heightened anxiety, it can bring back and trigger a lot of old wounds around anxiety, feeling helpless, feeling trapped, feeling like there won't be enough, or like they won't be enough. Those are 2 really common themes of, I will not be enough. I will not be smart enough, strong enough, wise enough, or I won't have enough. I won't have enough toilet paper is a very big one right now. Oddly, it is an odd one, but we get scared. So we're going to see that come in with our clients. And it's really important to normalize that, to say, yes, of course you're feeling anxious. And of course this is bringing up old stuff. And let's talk about that. And it might be that we're going to set aside that concern that you had with your kid or that conflict you had with your mom while we talk about this anxiety. Because if we don't deal with that underlying anxiety, you're probably not going to be at your best for other things. So normalizing the anxiety, normalizing looking for things, looking for information. I've been telling my clients, and I posted an article on my website, all the do's and don'ts. And one of the don'ts is, don't obsessively check the news. You will make yourself really frightened. Check it in the morning, check it in the evening. Don't look at it in between. And then also, just the regular self-care. Don't eat a bunch of junk food. Change your clothes. Don't wear your pajamas all day. You'll feel weird and icky. Wash your face. If you shave, shave. If you wear makeup, put on makeup. Brush your hair, brush your teeth, walk your dog, play with your kids, call your mom. All of those things that I would suggest people do are things they do every day.
So would you recommend that therapists and practitioners reach out to their clients that they might not have contacted recently, just
Mhm.
to check in and let them know that they do have this option for virtual video appointments?
Yes, absolutely. I sent out an email last week to everybody, and just said, listen, it had my do's and don'ts article on it. It had the attachment of the PDF that you folks at SimplePractice put together for telehealth. And it had, hello, I hope you're doing well, kind of my intro. And just want to let you know everything is telehealth. I put in a link. There's a link on my website, and there's a link in that letter to my clients, the email to my clients. If you need to schedule, please check in. I had a number of clients who got back in touch and said, I didn't know what you were doing. I'm glad this is an option. I had a couple people who haven't been in for a while schedule, which is not unusual. People schedule for tune-ups. And then I had some people just say, that was really nice. Thank you for thinking of me. And I think that's a really important thing. We are so in close temporarily in our clients' lives. We know more about them than their best friends do. To know your therapist thought of you at a time where you feel kind of scared is really soothing. So I'm not doing that because I want them to make appointments. I'm doing that because I want them to know somebody out there has their name in mind. And it's really helpful. And I put in resources. Here's where you can find, free meditation. Here's where you can find a free yoga class. Here's where you can find good for you soaps and good smelling things. Here's a hand sanitizer recipe you can make at home, like a bunch of stuff like that. And people appreciate that. And it keeps you at the top of mind, because let's say they're okay. They don't feel like they need to make an appointment, but they have a friend who's flipping out. Here, please call Pamela.
So, as a virtual therapist, how would you end up getting a new client, and how do you, after that initial phone consult, how do you, get the paperwork from them and that whole piece?
Okay. Well, yeah, I do take new clients virtually. I see people from all over California. So that's something that I try to really emphasize with therapists, is that you don't need to get licenses in other states. We have a very populated state, and a lot of people are looking for our services. So the way I do it is, unless it's a direct referral from, say, like a physician that I've worked with before or a client that I've worked with, I'll usually do a 15-minute free video consult. So that gives them a chance to meet me, sort of, and to try out the telehealth platform. And I'll make sure that this seems like the right fit. If it's not the right fit, then I'll help them. I'll direct them to maybe like a different directory, or to somebody I know. I might know somebody in their area. Then I send all the intake documents off to them through SimplePractice, and they fill all those out. And then when they come in, and when I say come in, they're either coming into my physical office or they're coming into my virtual office, I say, thank you so much for filling all this out. This really saves us a lot of time so we can get down to business. But I do have a couple of questions, and I can go through all of their intake information before they come in, which gives me an opportunity to get more information. But they also have had a chance to kind of sit down and think about what they want to say and give the amount of information they want to give. It's a little counterintuitive for a therapist, but bear with me. If you're listening to this, bear with me on this. When a client comes in, they may have things they know they need to talk about, but they don't want to talk about. They might have shame about something that's gone on, where we would say that's nothing to be ashamed of, but they feel shame. Or, maybe you should be embarrassed about that, but you still need to talk about it. They should be allowed to give us the amount of information they want to give us until they get to know us and know that we're safe. The intake is a really good way for them to do that. It's very, very safe. And my intake's really thorough, but it really helps people kind of narrow down. One of my questions is, what are your goals for counseling? And so that really helps them, because we're talking about when you're done, right? We're not talking about what's your problem. We're talking about what does it look like when you have what you want. And that really helps people get very focused. So I think that online intake is really important. I do all of the informed consent work online. They fill all that out there. They get a page with my fees, and they initial that they are agreeing to those fees and that they understand I don't take insurance. And I did that after a lot of people said, well, I thought you take insurance, even though it says all over my website, I don't take insurance. So it really does help people say, oh yeah, that's right. And they follow along. So I think that online intake process is really helpful for clients, super helpful for me. And when they come in for their intake, it's all about them. It's not about confidentiality laws. I make sure they understand everything, but that takes 5 to 10 minutes instead of 20 to 30 minutes. And then we get to really focus on why they're there, which is what they want to be there for.
What would you say to a client that doesn't value the virtual session as much as the in-person session, or doesn't think it's going to work the same way.
Yeah, that's really common. Not as common as I expected it to be, by the way, but it is common. And so what I'll tell people is, look, give it 15 minutes. If you really feel like you're just not going to be able to do it, then okay, we don't have to finish the whole 55 minutes. And so most people go, all right, I'll try it, and it's fine. I do have some people, though, who have been laid off from work, or they're really worried about money. And I don't want them to not have services. So I offer two options. I never, ever lower my rates, first of all, under any circumstance. And I really encourage other therapists to consider this. I see a certain percentage. I have 10% of my slots available for zero to very low fee. And they will always be open for people who can't afford my services but can benefit from them. So it's 10%. But nobody else gets a reduced fee. Right now, because people are worried about money, I will tell people, look, just have your session. You can pay me later. Pay me in May if you have to. I'm not that worried. If they end up not paying me, okay, they still got their therapy. They're going to pay me. It's going to happen. And if it doesn't, all right, I wasn't going to get paid anyway if they weren't going to keep their session. And then the other thing I'm offering people is, if you want, we'll do a half-hour check-in. That'll cost you half as much as your regular session, and you still get a check-in, and that really helps people quite a bit to know that that's an option.
Mm-hmm.
And I do take credit cards. That sometimes that'll defer the payment out 30 days, that kind of thing, because I don't take insurance.
Mm-hmm. How does that work for you? If you are seeing someone online, how do you then do the whole billing portion and the payment portion? What's best
Right.
practice there?
Well, I think best practice is to keep a credit card on file. When clients do their intake, I get their credit card information and their permission to charge their card. And then that way, at the very end of the session, we just finish up and I schedule. I say, okay, I'll just charge this to the card on file. And they say, yeah. And that's it. Instead of, okay, we have to spend 5 minutes after we've had this really intense personal conversation. Go get your wallet. Take out, what is the credit card number? It really kind of, it takes away from the tone of the meeting that you've just had. Plus, it's just super easy at the end of the day. You can put it on auto pay, or you can just click pay through all your sessions, and that takes care of it. And I always tell people the first time they're doing it, just look for it on your charge. It'll say Stripe, because I use Stripe, and through you guys. But that is just so much easier. And I do have clients who prefer to pay with cash or check. And when they're coming into the office, that's fine. And those people, if I've had them as a client for a while and they really want to pay me with a check, they can just put it in the mail. But for the most part, people are paying with credit cards anyway.
Yeah, I feel like people are pretty used to paying for things with credit cards online now. So
Absolutely. And, I made a doctor's appointment last week for like 6 months from now. And to hold that appointment, they need my credit card number. So this is becoming really, really common. People are getting really used to it. And everybody shops online. Everybody pulls out their credit card to do that. You hardly ever see somebody paying cash anywhere. If you write a check, the cashier looks at you like you're 1,000 years old. So it's a really common way to pay for things.
And did you mention also that you use online booking, so you allow your clients to schedule their own appointments?
I do. And I had it on my website that people could schedule their free 15-minute consult. And I actually had to pull that down because I was getting overwhelmed. But what's up there now, I do have a pop-up that people can schedule on there. But they can schedule from my website really easily. Just go to Client Portal and they schedule themselves. And that, oh my gosh, that's great. Because if somebody has to change their appointment and they have to call me or text me, and then I have to call them or text them. We go back and forth. They go in, they move their appointment. I just get a notification. This person canceled at this time, requested this appointment. I approve it. And it's like so efficient. It's not that I don't like talking to my clients. I do, but I can't always get to them quickly. And if I call them and they're not available, then we trade voicemails or I have to wait. And in the meantime, that spot can be taken by somebody else. My book is really full and people recognize that. So they call dibs on the appointments they want far ahead. And then that gives me a predictable income too.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. Is there anything else that you wanted to add in?
I think what I would say is that this is a chance for us as therapists. If we can really advocate for our clients and advocate for ourselves professionally, we are going to boost our visibility and we're going to boost our viability. And the way we can do that is to present ourselves professionally and warmly. And if you're not already using an electronic health record system, really consider starting, because first of all, it's very portable. It's very professional. My clients love it. They love that they can fill out all their forms. They love that they can use secure messaging to get to me. They love that they can make out their own appointment schedule. And it looks to them like I really have a professional business. I think I have a professional business. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is what my clients think. And they come to me believing already I'm in good hands because this person has it together. And again, I think I have it together, but I need them to know I have it together. And that professional presentation is really, really important. And I want you to think about if you went to a doctor and they went, yeah, we'll figure it out when you get here. You'd kind of wonder about that. But if they said, okay, we're all set. So you have an appointment on Tuesday at 2. I'm sending your things right now. Please open that email, set up your portal, fill out your forms, and I will see you Tuesday. That looks and sounds better, more prepared. You will be more prepared, and they feel like they're in good hands. So I really encourage people, and I consult with a lot of therapists. I mentor a lot of therapists, and that's where I start. Make sure that you have a system that's going to grow with you, whatever it is, and make sure that it looks professional. This is a profession. We need to present it as such. And we are right now at the cusp of being really, really visible if we play our cards right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that message and for all of these tips.
You
And
bet.
we'll get started.
Right on. Thanks, Travis.
Thanks.